Okay, it's recording, Rabbi.
Yeah, it's recording. Just a second. I'm trying to start the Facebook now. Okay, hi everyone. I'm just trying to go live on Facebook here also. I'm going to give it one more minute. If it doesn't work, then I forget about it. Okay, so Alex, we're recording?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I want to give everyone a big yashar koach. I'm just trying to go live. Just a second. Okay, here we go. One second, sir. I want to give everyone a big yashar koach that you came out in this very, very difficult weather. And I hope very much that you will feel that it's worth it. We have a very interesting class today. If I had to give it a title, I would call it, Did Chazal Believe in Gender Fluidity?
What is the title?
Did Chazal believe in a gender fluidity? Gender fluidity. Okay. And we'll explain soon what that means. Here. Now I'm going to try this one more time to go live. See if it's going to work. Okay. We are looking at Parashat Tazria Mitzvah. So if someone could please, we're looking at the very beginning of Parashat Tazria. Can you guys see me okay? Is the video okay?
Yeah, fine. Tazria 608.
Tazria Mitzvah.
608.
But I don't think you're live on the Facebook, Rabbi Spitz.
Now switch to your iPhone. Find your settings menu. Select the Bluetooth menu.
Okay. Alex, can you see it on Facebook or no?
Okay. Not yet, no.
Okay. Looks like it's not going to work.
Oh, because it's, are you trying to do through data?
Yeah, I'm trying to do through data. So I don't know if you guys know, but the Chinese government limits access to, limits access to Google and Facebook in China. So I can't use Facebook here except on data. Okay, we're just going to have to start. Okay, so we're at the beginning of Parashat Tazria. So if someone would like to please go ahead and read, we're going to read the first 4 or 5 verses. We're not going to be asking today so much. We'll ask, our focus is going to be the first verse, but not only the first pasuk, also the first 4 or 5 psukim. So someone please want to go ahead and read?
וידבר השם אל משה לאמור.
In English, if we can.
Okay, I'll do it if you like. Huh? In English. I'll read it, okay? Shall I do it? Okay. Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, When a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be...
Bad translation.
Oh, I thought you meant bad reading.
Bad translation. Okay, fine. So,
sorry, when a woman conceives,
we're going to do it in the literal, because you just destroyed the whole Midrash, not you. Art Scroll.
It's Rabbi Art Scroll, right?
Yes, it's Rabbi Art Scroll's fault, because in Hebrew it says Isha ki tazri'a v'yalda zachar, which literally translates into a woman when or if, what does it say there? When, if, how does it?
When.
When she tazria, when she gives seed and bore and when she gives seed, tazria is from the word of zera, which means seed. So when a woman gives seed and gives birth to a son, to a male, that's the first verse. Isha ki tazria ve'elda zachar. A woman, if she gives when she gives seed and gives birth to a male. Okay. Now go ahead. What?
We don't think of a woman giving seed. We think of a man giving seed.
Okay, good. We'll get there. Okay, let's read the first 4 or 5 verses, and then we'll go back. And that's the first question you were going to ask. Okay, now go ahead and continue, please.
I'm afraid to read anymore, but I will. When a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be contaminated for a 7-day period. As during the days of her separation, infirmity, she shall be contaminated. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. For 33 days, she shall remain in blood of purity. She may not touch anything sacred, and she may not enter the sanctuary until the completion of her days of purity. If she gives birth to a female, she will be contaminated for 2 weeks, as during her separation, and for 66 days, as she shall remain in blood of purity. Upon the completion of the days of her purity, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a sheep within its first year for an elevation offering, and a young dove or turtle dove for a sin offering to the entrance of the tent of meeting to the Kohen. More?
Okay, what's the next verse? Please remind me. How does it start?
He shall offer it before Hashem and atone.
No. Fine, that's it. Okay. For the time being, let's put aside. We're not going to discuss the pasuk about the Brit Milah, but on the 8th day his foreskin shall. We're not going to talk about that pasuk. For our purposes today, that doesn't interest us. Okay, questions. Our focus is the first verse, but we'll also take questions on the other verses, or maybe on the whole string of verses.
To me,
so Paul's question, right, was that we don't usually think of the woman as giving seed, as having seed. It's usually a word that we think of in the context of a man, as far as semen, seed. So why would it refer to the woman as giving seed and not the man? Or why not use a different word, a different term? It's a strange word to use in the context of a woman. So absolutely, and we'll see that this is the first Midrash we'll see today discusses this directly. Other questions?
The other question would be, why are we impure when we conceive, when we give birth?
Excellent question, which is we think usually of the concept of purity and impurity, and we've discussed this ourselves in this class at least 2 different years, that Tumah and Tahara have to do with synonymous with life and death, with vitality and the absence of life. So when a woman gives birth, what greater presence of life could there possibly be? She should be tahor. She should not be tameh. So why? Okay, excellent question. Regretfully, we're not going to be discussing it today. Not that specific question, but it is definitely a question that comes out of these verses. Yes, Oleg.
Would you remember to talk about it in another time?
Yeah, listen, I'll try at the end to say 1 or 2 sentences about that. I can even just say now one possible answer, which is although there's new life coming into the world, the mother herself, her life has been decreased. Until 5 minutes ago, we looked at this woman, and she was double alive. In her were two lives, 2 hearts, 2 souls. It was tremendous vitality and in her, and when she gives birth, although now there is a separate additional life in the world, she herself experiences the loss of life. She herself experiences the loss of vitality. She herself, her life is decreased. She's also in danger of dying. So that's one of the ways to understand why there's impurity. We have to remember, impurity does not mean sin. Impurity, it's not a prohibition.
It means
it's not
contaminated.
It is not. But the word contaminated is not a good word. Is not a good translation of the word tameh. It is not a prohibition to become tameh, and it is not a mitzvah to become tahor. They're just states of being. They're not that have certain prohibitions connected to them. But it is not a bad thing to be tameh. When someone is tameh, they can't go to Beit HaMikdash. When a person is experiencing death, loss, then the understanding is that they have an inability or a difficulty to access holiness, but it is not a prohibition. Okay, with that, we have a lot to see, so we'll continue. Yes, Oleg.
No, I just wanted to ask you, so on one hand it says that she shall be contaminated, and then it sort of says in a contradictory way, completion of her days of purity.
Yes.
Right. So what happens is there's a certain amount of days of impurity, and then after that day, until the end of the 33rd day, even if she experiences, she sees blood, she's not impure. She's pure no matter what. Okay.
Somehow from 7 to 33, there's a period that's not contaminated.
Exactly. Days that even if she experienced bleeding, which happens many times after giving birth, right? There's a lot of emissions, a lot of things. Those days between day 7 and 33 are days of purity, no matter what. Okay. So you're right. That is an interesting contradiction. It goes all the way from impurity right after the birth to the opposite extreme of purity no matter what. Okay, other questions? Yes.
The struggle I have is if you look at how women have been treated, maybe poorly, like second class, shunned, hid behind curtains, this seems that God is actually encouraging that. And
Ron, I'm so happy that I'm very happy that you came, because I wasn't sure if anyone was going to ask that question, and I know I could trust that you would. And that's the question.
What is the question?
And that is the question that I was looking for. So the question is, if I have to put it a lot more bluntly, that the Torah here sounds very, very chauvinistic, more so than even usual. The fact that it gives a completely different category almost, right? Meaning, if you give birth to a daughter, you are impure double the amount of time than if you give birth to a son. And regardless of what I said before, we associate impurity with in a negative. We associate impurity to negative connotation, and over here anyhow. Ron, am I being accurate, or is there more to it?
Well, I go stronger because you're saying chauvinistic. That's sort of elevating man. I think it's putting down women.
In what way? Which point? Where do you see it?
When someone is contaminated, you have someone has leprosy. You put them in a leopard colony because they're contaminated, and you don't want them to be around anybody lest they contaminate someone else.
Right.
That would justify what the Muslims do, and it seems that sometimes you see it in the Orthodox world that women are, be barefoot pregnant in the kitchen. That's your role, and don't come out pregnant, or if you gave birth, or if you're having your period.
Okay, I'll accept the question. It fits well with what we're going to see. So I'm going to phrase it as something more general, which is the whole the way also I'd say also almost like the division between how the Torah talks about giving birth to a boy and girl. The whole air of it seems much more positive in the context of male being born. Right? There's also the mitzvah of the Brit Milah, and that's the one that's mentioned first. And there seems to be a negative connotation towards giving birth to a girl. And by the way, I'd agree that, and I agree that there are other sources. I'll tell you about another source. This is, of course, a much later source, but it's one that is, you know what? Maybe at the end. Maybe at the end. Okay, we'll continue. Yes. Wait. Someone else had a question. Yes.
Why it's sin offering after the birth?
Excellent. Right. This connects to what we said before. Why does she have to bring a sin offering? Right. For a boy and a girl. Why sin offering? Okay. Yes. Alex.
I don't know if that's what you're going to say, but Pidyon Ben, right? That sort of celebrates the fact that the boy was born and not a girl.
Right. So even if we would argue that you can't do a circumcision for a girl, one could theoretically do Pidyon Haben, the redeeming of the firstborn for a girl, but obviously we don't. We do it for only for a boy. So even though that's what?
I meant not Pidyon Haben. I meant greeting the boy. What's it called?
Shalom Zachar?
Shalom Zachar, right. Shalom. Although it's kind of not a lacha.
The Pidyon Haben point is a better point.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what you meant, right?
I meant Shalom Zachar.
I know, I'm just helping.
Okay, we're going to start. We're going to look a little bit at I'd point out in continuation to what Ron was saying, there seems to be a very big emphasis here on the difference between boys and girls, between male and female. It's not very common. The Torah usually directs itself in a very neutral way, right? Meaning it's usually very if it says don't kill, it phrases it in the male form, right? Because it has to do one, it can't do both. In Hebrew, it can't be gender neutral language. But we know, and we've actually discussed this in one of our classes, that it's aimed towards everyone. But over here, there seems to be a very big deal about the division and the difference between how to treat the situation when a male is born and a female. It seems to be very emphasized.
So, Rabbi, your emphasis is not so much Ron's about the mother giving birth, but rather, is it a male or a female offspring and the differences there? That seems to be the focus. Right?
Yes, but I agree with Ron. that you read this, and besides the fact that there seems to be a very, very harsh division between what happens when a boy is born and what happens when a girl is born, it also seems to be not just a division and equal but separate. It seems separate and not equal and separate and not equal, right? That's one question. And our first question about which was Paul's question about the seed. Why does he use the term seed when it comes to a woman, which is a strange phrase? Okay, we're now going to look at the source sheet. And it's a very, very, very interesting source sheet and some very interesting midrashim. Okay. Just a second. I have to open it here. I wasn't able to print, so I need to do it on the computer. Okay. So it's everyone have the source sheet? Everyone see it?
Yeah.
Okay. A woman, when she gives seed. Now remember, we're going to look for an answer, and it's going to open up other questions. If the woman seeds first, she gives birth to a male. if the man seeds first, she gives birth to a female. Rabbi Chia, son of Abba, said, the male is accredited to the woman and the female to the man. As it says in Bereshit chapter 22, Milcah too has borne sons to your brother Nachor, right? Milcah, the woman, has borne sons to your brother Nachor. Betuel, okay, a man, gave birth to Rivka, right? So it's showing here that when it talks about the women giving birth, it talks about sons being born. And when it talks about a male giving birth, it talks about a woman being born, a female being born. You guys see it?
Mhm.
Similarly, in Divrei Hayamim, she also bore Shaf, father of Madmana, Sheva, father of Machbeniah, and father of Gibeah. So she gave birth to two boys, right? Shaf, father of Madmana, okay, and then it goes on to say the daughter of Kalev was Achsa. So again, we see another example.
What does it mean? The male is accredited
wait.
to the woman and the female. What is accredited?
I'll get to it in a second. We see, the Midrash concludes, we see that the females are credited to the man and the males to the woman. Therefore, it says, a woman, when she seeds and gives birth to a male. So, the word, I had difficulty translating the word from Hebrew,
What
but
is the original Hebrew in the Midrash?
originally, tole, that it hinges, or that it
Determined by.
What's the word?
what?
Can you spell?
So-
Can you spell the word?
Wait, what did I just say? Tole, taf vav lamed hey. So, so what is it the Midrash? Let's do what we usually do. What is the Midrash saying? Okay,
Yeah.
what is it explaining about the use of the word seed? Okay, it seems to be saying, it seems to be giving almost like a medical definition. Okay, and it says when a woman, okay, for lack of it, when a woman finishes first, okay, they understood that just like a man has a seed, their understanding, it seems to be that their understanding of biology was that a woman also produces something like seed. And it says when a woman gives seed first, then the biological outcome is a boy. And when a man seeds first, the biological outcome is a woman, is a female.
Do you confirm this principle by your experience? So,
No, absolutely not. This is absolutely.
It's not real science.
This is absolutely not accurate.
it is science. It is science.
Absolutely not.
Why is it not science?
If this midrash is attempting to be a medical statement, then it is absolutely 100% incorrect. It is interesting that it talks about the man having. We know today that it is the man who contributes more to the sex of the baby than the woman, but we understand today that the man is responsible for whether it's a boy or a girl. But so if this is an attempt to give a description of a medical description, it's 100% incorrect. Yes, Paul, you wanted to say something?
I just want to ask a question about the translation of verse 5. Because in English, in the Art Scroll, it says, if she gives birth to a female. What does it translate to in Hebrew? Because it should say, if he gives birth to a female.
Very good. You're right. In Hebrew, the phrase is im nekeva teled. which the word teled could be talking about a female or male. And the Midrash, which I didn't bring, understands it in this same Midrash, understands it, but I didn't bring it because it doesn't translate to English. The Midrash over here, one of the proofs that it brings to this switching male to female, female to male, is that verse 5, saying, you see, this verse, that if a female is born, is written in the male form. But it doesn't work in English, so I took it out. It doesn't work in English, but very good.
It's consistent, though.
Yes, it's consistent as talking to a male. That's how the Midrash understands it, and it can be understood that way. So, let's start from the beginning, okay? Is the Midrash providing an answer to our question about the use of the word seed? Yes, it is.
I presume it was the understanding they had at the time. So it explains why seed is used, because it's a determiner of the gender.
Okay. So so it gives an answer. Are we happy with the answer?
Not in the 21st century.
Not in the 21st century. So what do we do when we're not happy because we're in the 21st century? We're not happy with the answer. You're saying if we were in the 18th century, we'd be very happy. Right, Alex? You're saying if we were in the 18th century, we'd be very happy.
Maybe.
Does anyone here think that if you were the 18th century reading this Midrash, we'd still be unhappy?
I think at that time they would probably have some.
Okay. 16th century. 13th century. Then we'd be happy.
It still doesn't explain why with the girl you have to wait 2 months.
Right. No, you're right. We haven't yet. This Midrash does not yet talk about in any way about the difference between male and female, but it does. Because this Midrash is on the first verse. Okay, and the first verse still does not have anything about the difference in days.
So I might just ask, even if you took this as given, what would you learn from it? What would that?
Excellent. I'll get back to that in a second. Yes, go ahead.
Is it related to chromosome, X and Y?
Yes, that's what we know today. It has to do with a chromosome, but that distinction is made by the man. So I'm going to go back. Yes, Oleg.
It actually gives an interesting perspective. It's opposite of chauvinism then, because then men want to have boys as offsprings, and basically it says it hinges upon the woman to bear a son. So
excellent.
To make her happy to get a son.
Excellent. We would think that, so we have two options. Option one is that Chazal actually thought that this was the medical truth, and they were just wrong, and that's it. But considering the fact, I don't think that even in the 12th century I'd be happy with this Midrash, because how could they possibly know this? Meaning, I would have difficulty believing that Chazal are trying to relay a medical truth. Because what's the significance of it? Who cares? So one could say, no, it's medical advice. It says, if you want to make sure you have sons, because if you took this as a medical statement, what practical application would it have? It would have very practical applications, which is, okay, and actually there's a Midrash that says this. A Midrash that says that a man must, it's actually, and excuse the language a little bit, but the Midrash says this in several places. It says, if a man wants to make sure that he has sons, he needs to make sure that his wife reaches fulfillment before him. Which in itself is very, very interesting. Okay, that halacha or the rabbis put as a religious obligation for a man to take care of his wife's needs before his own, to the point where this is given as a guarantee to have sons. But I agree with Oleg and with what Paul was saying. I would have difficulty with this even in the 13th century, because how could they possibly make such a statement as a medical statement? What? They did tests to check and see. I don't believe they did such tests. And second, if they had done some tests, they would see that it's absolutely not true. And if that's the case, that this is not, and this is a larger having to do with the methodology of Midrash, that whenever we come and we see Midrashim that are trying to give medical or scientific fact, I think it is important to understand that at least in most cases, maybe even all, but definitely most cases, the rabbis were not interested in the physics of it, because they didn't come and describe to us every single natural effect in the world. If they're pinpointing one scientific point or one biological point, it's for a specific purpose. And in order to understand what the Midrash is trying to do, we need to understand it in a larger context and try to see what are they trying to get from this. And then I would come and ask, and I would point out that Oleg's question is the one I was going for, which is I think the larger topic here. Why would the Midrash come and say a man who is responsible for boys being born? Women. Your wife is the one who's in charge of the boys being born. You, the man, you give birth to girls. Your wife is the one who gives birth to boys. She's accredited with the boys being born. You're accredited with the girls. This seems so much the opposite of what we would think in a traditional worldview, where the father has sons, the mother has daughters, right? The daughters are the daughters of her mother. The sons are the sons of the father. Because sons is something, right? Because sons is and in a traditional society, this Chazal's statement here is very opposite, very much almost I'd say emasculating.
But it
says the woman gives seed and has a male. But it's the man who's supposed to give the seed and have a male, not the woman. So either Chazal were convinced of this as a absolute medical truth and we're just completely wrong, or there's a lot more going on here.
Or
yes,
what?
Ron.
More going on.
What?
More going on.
But they would have had evidence, clear evidence. The idea that a woman would be raped could never have a son out of that, according to this. And there would have had to have been some rape situations where a boy was born. They would know that the woman came forward and said, look, this person on the stranger, whatever, they were raped. But a boy came out of that.
I'm sure you're right. Of course you're right. And therefore?
Therefore, it doesn't hold. If you have one example where it wasn't true, it's not true. You can't make that statement.
And as you said, I'm sure there was a lot more than one example of that. We have to remember that the Midrash is being written in the generations after the Roman conquest of Israel. So during the Roman conquest of Israel, I'm sure for sure. There's not maybe. There were many examples of what you just mentioned. Okay, so Ron, you are strengthening what I'm saying, that there must be something more going on here. Okay, we're now ready for the second Midrash. Don't worry, we'll very soon see a very interesting pattern here.
I have great expectation to understand what is going on here. I do not understand what the word accredited means. I don't know what this is coming to show us. How is this making us wiser and stronger as humans? What?
Okay, so let's go. Let's continue. It's only going to get stranger. Okay, everyone ready? We're going to the next source. A woman, when she gives seed, that's what is written. Okay, this is a verse from Proverbs. And we saw that a lot of times the Midrash, in order to explain a verse in one place, will quote a verse in a different place and give explanation to a different verse in an attempt to explain a verse by us. So that's what it's doing here. A woman, when she gives a seed, that's what is written. You have created me. Sorry, a woman, when she gives seed and gives birth to a son, to a male. Okay, that's what it's talking about. That the woman is accredited with the male, which seems strange. This confusion. That's what is written. You have created me behind and front. Said Rav Shmuel bar Nachman. Okay, the verse over there says, it's from Tehillim. Okay, it's from Psalms. And the verse over there says, you have created me behind and front. And now the Midrash is going to explain what does that mean that man was created behind and front. Said Rav Shmuel bar Nachman, when the Holy One, blessed be He, created the first man, he created him as an androgynous being. Resh Lakish said, when it was created, meaning the first man, Adam HaRishon, dual faces were created, and it was cut, and two were made. One back was male, one back was female. Okay, hopefully this is as strange for you guys as it is for me. Okay, it's saying that when Adam HaRishon was created, I shouldn't use the word it or whatever was androgynous. They, I think is what the Midrash uses the term it about a human, because it can't say he and it can't say she, right? So it says that the first Adam HaRishon was androgynous. What does that mean? Both male and female. And the second opinion is a little bit different. What's the difference between the first opinion and the second opinion? Androgynous seems to be completely male and completely female, meaning a mishmash. Whereas the second opinion of Resh Lakish says it was like this, okay? It was a male and a female who were stuck together. So there was a distinction between the male side and the female side. They were kind of like Siamese twins, and then they were separated into two separate beings. But the first opinion says not like this. One creature that was a complete mixture of male and female. If I had to, I'd say this sounds like a very postmodern Midrash. Okay? If I'm a postmodernist, I love this Midrash. Because it seems to be showing that in the initial creation of humans, there was no division of sex or gender. Or at least according to the first opinion. Let's continue. Rabbi Elazar, behind, it's continuing to explain the verse from Tehillim. Behind, that's the first day of creation. Front, that's the last day of creation. For the opinion or proof for the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, there is the verse from Genesis chapter 1, let the earth bring forth the living soul to its kind. Living soul, that's the spirit of the first man. Now we have to. I know it's strange. We got to continue though. Said Resh Lakish, Behind, that's the last day. Front, that's the first day. For the opinion of Rabbi Lakish, there is the verse, and the Spirit of God wavered upon the water. That is the spirit of the King Messiah. So on the very first day of creation, says, according to Resh Lakish, it refers to the spirit of man. Okay, and then on the last day, on the sixth day, also it refers to the creation of man. And then the Midrash goes on to say, if man merits, we say to him, you were created before all of creation. If not, meaning if he does not merit, we say to him, the mosquito preceded you. It's like, don't think you're so special, the mosquito was created before you. So if a person merits, we say, oh, man was created on the first day, before anything else. And if man does not merit, meaning he does not behave correctly and is not a good person, we say, you see, you're nothing. The mosquito was created before you.
Are you using man as male?
No, it's very much saying a human. It's not being gender specific. Saying okay.
What does the Mashiach has to do with here?
Good question. It's not talking. It's not. I don't think it's being specific about the Mashiach. It's saying Mashiach is an example of a created human. So there's a Midrash somewhere else that says, when it says the Spirit of God, in the first verse, the second verse of the Torah, it talks about a person, proving that humans, in one way or another, could be understood as being created before anything else in creation. So there, you see, we could prove to man, to a person here, look, the very first thing in creation was human concept, conception, human identity. But we could also understand human conception as being created last. Okay, I know it's a very strange midrash.
It's very strange.
So let's start with, did the midrash answer our question about a woman giving seed and giving birth to a male? Is it answering the question?
A woman giving seed and what?
And seeding and giving birth to a male. Does it give an answer? Right, this midrash starts off quoting our verse and then bringing the two explanations of the first human, how it was an androgynous being, or one being that had two sides, two distinct male and female sides. How does this answer or explain anything about our verse? The Midrash understands this as relating to our verse. How?
It's lost on me.
Anyone? I think it's because it was strange for the Midrash to accredit the woman with giving birth to a male. And then this Midrash, can you guys hear me and see me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just 1 second. And this Midrash is saying, it seems like it's saying, don't get so hung up on the separation between male and female. There's not that big of a difference. Look, the very first human being was a mix. Or, according to a different opinion, male and female, distinct, but connected as one being. So the fact that the woman is the one who's responsible for the birth of the male shouldn't seem so strange, because
It's diminished because, as a matter of fact, this is the only true asseveration or principle I can accept. It is true that, in a way, physiologically also, human beings are androgynous in the sense that there is a part male, which is a part of understanding, penetrating, going out to reality and so forth. And there is a part that is very receptive, which is the female part. This I can understand. But to tell you the truth, all the rest, it looks to me like chaotic, and not having any sense, and not knowing at all where is it going.
Okay, I agree with both things you said. Yes.
Maybe it doesn't say, but maybe between the line, Midrash says, when it was one person, and when they divided, it was male and female. So when male and female, when they give part of themselves, they can only give the opposite sex.
They can what?
Opposite sex.
But that maybe that works with the second. I hear what you're saying. That could work with the second opinion that says that they were back to back, but there was a distinct male side and a distinct female side to this creature, and then they were separated. So what you're saying works very well with that. But the first one, not as much. But I think what he's saying is good. By the way, I think there's another thing here. When a woman is pregnant with a male, then also we almost have it's almost like the phenomena that the Midrash is pointing out is happening again. When a woman is pregnant with a boy, you have one creature here that, think about it, when a woman is pregnant with a boy, she has within her a male.
Correct.
It's a very interesting concept. And the Midrash is saying, oh yes, this goes back to the beginning of creation. And it gives us two versions. Version one of two distinct creatures who are just connected, a woman and a man, a male and a female, just like you have a woman who can be pregnant with a male, which is, again, interesting. A woman has a complete male identity, consciousness. It's not male yet. We today wouldn't maybe call it male because it's not born yet, but physiologically, it is definitely male. It's part of her, in her body. It's an amazing idea. But again, the first opinion, I think, is the even more interesting one, to say that the first human being was androgynous, where the male and female were completely mixed. But again, so I think this is in a way to understand, yes, the Torah understands that the male and the female can be mixed. And also over here, because that's how we can see, and that's how, if that's the way it was, and there's sources for this from the very beginning of creation, we didn't actually go into where does the Midrash get it from, that there was that, and I'll just say very quickly, where does the Midrash get this strange idea that the first human being was androgynous or was male and female back to back? And I'll say very quickly, without going into it at length because we don't have the time, that's because of the two different stories of creation. In chapter 1 of Genesis, it says that that God created man, again, man, not a male, a human. Male and female, he created them. But it talks about it as a singular creation of male and female together. And then later on in chapter 2 of Genesis, it talks about a distinct creation of male, and then later on, a creation of the female. That's a story that we know, that the man was put to sleep, and his side was taken, or his rib. But in the first chapter, none of that appears. In the first chapter, it says God created human and singular, male and female, he created them. So the Midrash understands this in the most literal way, that the first human was created as both male and female. So this is borrowed in order to explain our verse of how we understand the woman being the one credited, in charge, responsible for the birth of a male. So this is not so strange, because the original creation was man and woman completely mishmash together. Okay, yes.
going through the yin yang and
Yeah.
and the fact, well, we know that any human has both characteristics, and depending on the imbalance in hormonal disbalance, or you could get certain features more pronounced than the others, and obviously there are kids born with both sexes. But essentially that's all good. But what's the point? Like, what are they trying to say?
Yeah, I think there is a point here. I think the point is maybe saying that, well, homosexuals will be very happy with that midrash. But I mean, what the point is saying, what the Torah, I believe, is saying is that the division of the sexes doesn't sound to be like a big deal. In other words, it's not the first category of the human, because human is created first as a human, as Adam, as a human being. Right. And only subsequently, later, they were divided.
Right.
So it is in a way diminishing. I like what you said, but finally, when a woman produces seed, she has a male in her body. So this is interesting. So what the Torah is in a way saying is that maybe the differences are not that constraining or that important. You know what I mean?
Right. So
I don't know what they mean.
If we were to stop the class now, then everyone here would be sure that I'm claiming that this midrash is maybe the most progressive text ever, one of the most progressive texts ever written, right?
Correct.
You go home and say, Rabbi Spitz taught us, or showed us a midrash from which we learn that Judaism and Orthodoxy believes in gender fluidity.
Believes what?
In gender fluidity. That there's no real difference, no real biological difference between male and female. Rather, there's a spectrum, or like Oleg said, although Oleg was being very traditional. You were saying that it's all dependent on biology. So, but if you were a postmodernist, you'd say it's not about biology, it's about social constructs, and it's about upbringing, and it's about culture. It's okay, Oleg. I don't believe in that. But we all here just made a big assumption. We made, and Batya, what you said that if you are pro, gay rights, then you would be very happy with what we just said. But we all make, before we see the third midrash, this is, I think, a crucial point when it comes to talking about these types of issues. We all just made an assumption that by the mere fact that the Midrash seems to recognize the existence of variety, that automatically translates into, and therefore they should have equal rights, they should have equal this, or therefore they shouldn't be criticized, and therefore they should be allowed to do X, Y, and Z. Because so often the discussion about these things revolves around, is there even such a thing as a homosexual? Is there such a thing as a transgender? Or is this an anomaly that is a perverse behavior? So often the argument from an Orthodox perspective, usually when this is discussed, it's discussed as, this is unnatural, and because it's unnatural, we as a society don't need to give it any type of consideration. But the battle that so often is fought is, you are choosing to behave in a way that is unnatural, and therefore, the onus is on you because there's something wrong with you. And the onus is not on me, on society, to be considerate or to change my behavior. So we all assume that if we accept that there are diverse identities or diverse biological and even, let's say we accept the term gender options, that automatically that means that it's okay, or that we need to accept the behavior. And that's an assumption that all the Midrash did is to say that biologically speaking, there are more varieties, and even that somewhere in our own identity, either historically or genetically, or even maybe at all stages, somewhere in every, maybe, not only historically, but maybe even in every single human being, there is two options: either a complete mix of male and female in different variations, or even two distinct sides, right? There's the male side, everyone has a male side, everyone has a female side, they're distinct, and in some people the male side is more dominant and the female side is less, and sometimes it's the opposite, okay? But the first opinion is even more eccentric, which comes and says it's not even distinct, it's completely fluid. And this Midrash seems to be establishing this. Okay, now we're ready for the third Midrash. Okay, the third Midrash in my mind is the most interesting one, and definitely the most important one that will bring us back to a slightly less progressive orientation, but I think a very, very important lesson. So here we go, the third Midrash. This is based on verse, I think it's 4, where it talks about the sacrifice that the mother brings. So Paul, what verse is that? Verse 4? Verse 5?
6.
Verse 6. So at the end of the verse, it says, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering. So the Midrash asks a question that I would in a million years not think of asking. It says the following: turtle doves precede young pigeons in all other places, meaning everywhere else in the Torah where it refers to these animals as a sacrifice, it always says turtle doves and young pigeons. That is the order everywhere except by us. Yes, says the Midrash. I might think that this is so because they are preferred to them. We would think that turtle doves are preferred to young pigeons, and that's why everywhere in the Torah, turtle doves are if a person, man, woman, needs to bring a sin offering, okay, and can't bring the larger animals, they're poor, so they can also bring a turtle dove or a pigeon. So the Midrash is saying the fact that everywhere in the Torah turtle doves appears before young pigeons, we would think that if you are very poor and you have both turtle doves and young pigeons, it's better to bring a turtle dove as a sin offering, and young pigeons is a lower grade sacrifice. Says the Midrash, it is therefore written by us, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering. It reverses it to teach that they are equivalent. Then it goes on to say, Moshe precedes Aaron in all places. I might think this is so because he, Moshe, is preferred to him, to Aaron. It is therefore written, he is Aaron and Moshe, to teach that they are equivalent. Father precedes mother in all places. I might think this is so because the honor of one's father is above that of his mother. It is therefore written, a man, his mother, and his father you shall fear, to teach that they are equivalent. But the sages have said the father takes precedence to the mother in all instances, for both he and his mother are obliged to honor his father. Let's just explain the last sentence. It's saying the obligation to honor one's mother and one's father are equal obligations. Okay? But if there's a clash between honoring one's mother and honoring one's father, then a person needs to honor their father first. For instance, my mother says, "Please get me a glass of water." And my father says at a different time, "Please get me a glass of water." The obligation to fulfill their request is equal, of equal severity, of equal seriousness. It is the same exact mitzvah, and one is not a bigger mitzvah than the other. It's not a bigger mitzvah to respect and to honor and to fear one's father than it is to respect and honor and fear one's mother. But if at the same time my father and my mother say, "Please get me a glass of water," first the person needs to give the glass of water to his father and then to his mother. Why? Because both me and my mother are obligated in the honor of my father. So first, let's agree that this is a very interesting midrash.
Well, my question is, how does he go from the third verse to Moshe and Aaron? And how does he go after Moshe and Aaron with the question of father and mother? So this is kind of a mishmash. And well, you tell me. I don't know.
Okay, I would love to hear your thoughts before I give you my spiel on this and how I think it connects to everything we said so far. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Anyone who would like to share.
I mean, this just to simply answer Bacha's question, I mean, aren't these just different examples of where it's always mentioned in the Torah in a certain order, but there's an exception for each one of them, and it's pointing out each one of these pairs has one exception, and that proves somehow that the order doesn't really matter. But I would say that if one exception is mentioned, then somehow where it's mentioned all the time has precedence over the one time when it's mentioned differently.
Right. You're saying, why does the Midrash? Is it raining ice again?
Yeah, you heard that?
No, but I can see everyone's attention being drawn to it.
Right.
So Paul, you're asking, why does the fact that if it appears in 99 places, Moshe and Aaron, not indicate something, more so than the one time it says Aaron and Moshe?
I'd look more to say why on the exceptional basis is it done differently. There's a reason in that case, but it doesn't say to me that they're equal. It just says there's a reason that one is different than the others.
So that would be the question. So that would be the question on the Midrash. Why does the Midrash accredit the one time in order to make the rule? The rule is they're equal. So saying the one time it mentions the reverse, why is that enough to balance out the 99 places it says otherwise? Where obviously some type of precedence is given to Moshe. Otherwise, why is he mentioned first in 99% of the cases? And obviously the father is given precedence in 99% of the cases.
Correct.
So why does
this is a scientific approach. That's the fact that a theory holds. Every theory holds until you find a single proof that it doesn't work, and the single proof is enough to dispel the theory, and so that you can have 99 cases where there's a certain order, but then there's the one case that order is reversed. But it's interesting that following the same logic, then you would say going back to the who gives seed doesn't really matter, because the fact that it's written and it says who is first and it's male, then basically it says doesn't really matter, because
there you go. That's the connection to I think the connection to the larger picture that we're talking about. because it's interesting. It starts from turtle doves, goes to animals, right? Very, very parv. Well, it's kind of fleshig, but very parv from a political standpoint. Then it goes to Moshe and Aaron, and then it goes to father and mother. Father and mother is already getting very, for lack of a better word, it's getting very political. Okay, not as parv as Moshe and Aaron, two brothers. Moshe and Aaron are two brothers, and it's saying, yes, we know you think that Moshe gets precedence because he's always at the front.
Correct.
But look, I'll show you one example that proves that Moshe and Aaron were equal. But what does that mean, Moshe and Aaron were equal? They weren't equal. Hashem spoke to Moshe directly, more than he spoke to Aaron, and he spoke to him on a level higher than Aaron's level. So what does that mean? Moshe and Aaron are equal. In what way? In what way are they equal? How do we understand? I mean, the Midrash sounds very nice. It sounds very apologetic, but it looks like it's just apologetics. What do you mean? Of course, Moshe has precedence. We're commanded to believe that Moshe's Torah is truth. You're saying that Moshe doesn't have precedence of some kind over Aaron? What does it mean when the Midrash says that they're equal? And how do you come and say that father and mother are equal if when they contradict each other, I'm obligated to my father, not my mother? So what does that mean they're equal?
Rabbi, this is saying something extremely serious. I believe it's saying the following. The Torah is true. The Rabbanim are true. Everything we learn here is true. But we have to be able to find our own truth inside. Meaning the Torah is finally created by human beings, male or female or whatever, humans. Sometimes it says what is clear, sometimes it is not so clear because humans are fallible, are human beings only. So what I'm saying is that faith and our own understanding is what counts, and our own, especially our own work, our task as humans.
Okay. I hear that, but I want to try to take it in a different direction. Yes.
I think those Midrashim, very, very progressive, extremely progressive, in the point that Torah is everything about social justice, social between castes, between Kohanim, Levitim, male, female, and this is what shows us that don't think that woman, because at this time, when the Torah was written, a man has to take two women because to marry, so she is not going to be by herself, to look after somebody. So they used to look at us like something that we need protection, that we are something not so important. And here comes Midrash and says that's not true. Actually, she can give birth.
Wait, you're getting cut off. Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, continue.
This Midrash says that this woman, it depends on her if she's going to be a male. And if you want to be a male son, you have to be nice to this woman.
Yes. On that point, I think the Midrash is very much trying to I agree on that point. But I want to say, I want to point out, yes, Ron.
But then it undermines it all. I mean, it's being politically correct until the final sentence. And it says, forget what I said. The father takes precedence of the mother in all instances. For both he and the mother are obligated to honor the father. So forget what I said.
You're right. What is the Midrash doing? It was such a beautiful Midrash. Can't we just erase the last sentence? It's such a beautiful Midrash. It fits well, so well in with our modern or even postmodern sensitivities. So why did that last sentence have to come and ruin it all? And I think this is where my progressiveness ends, okay? That sentence comes and seems to say, like I said, the Midrash sounds beautiful, but the truth is, the Midrash is bogus. Because, like I said before, what do you mean? You expect us to actually accept that just because that one verse, that the Torah actually treats and relates to Moshe and Aaron equally? The Torah talks about Moshe as being the most humble person who ever lived. Hashem talks about the fact that Moshe is the greatest prophet that ever lived, and how all the other prophets can't reach his level, right? I speak to Moshe mouth to mouth, whereas all the other prophets, b'chalom adaber bo, I speak to them in dreams. So what does the Midrash mean when it says Moshe and Aaron are equal? Who is it trying to fool? Living in la what? We're trying to make us. It's selling us. It's not. It's nonsense. It's not true. That Moshe and Aaron are equal. Moshe is Moshe. Aaron is Aaron. And like you say, Ron, the father and the mother are equal. Well, except when they're against each other, and then the father is more than the mother. So, what value is it to the statement that father and mother are equal? So I think, and this is something that still requires some thought. It's not a complete idea, but I think what the Midrash here is doing, it's saying that on a, almost I'd say like a theological level, or almost as if like in God's eyes, so to say, who wrote the Torah, everyone's equal. Everyone is seen as having the same value. In the eye, excuse the phrase, but in the eyes of God, so to say. It says, but when it comes to practical life, to the building of society, to the functioning of the family, over there, on a practical level, you can't have everyone equal. It doesn't work. It's not real. At the end of the day, in order for things to function, there needs to be precedence. Something, someone, some people, there needs to be something. In practicality, everyone equal sounds beautiful, but it doesn't work. That's what it seems. You can't have Moshe and Aaron both being equal. One of them needs to be the leader. One of them needs to be the one who's going to be listened to, and not the other one. It can't work. So, and at the end of the day, the Midrash comes and says, yes, father and mother are equal on a theoretical level. And there is a fundamental approach to our father and mother needs to be that we feel equally towards them. And just because our father may be the more dominant one in the traditional family, the father, or in, well, most of humanity throughout most of history, the father might be the more dominant one in certain things.
No, 1 second.
What?
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? No, can you see? I can see and hear you.
Rabbi Spitz.
I can't hear.
You can't hear me? Okay. I can hear you.
Oh, the speaker. Maybe the speaker.
What? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You can hear us.
We
I
can't
can hear you. Oh, that's not good.
What about just using the regular speaker from the disconnect that speaker and just work off and see if it works. It won't be as loud, but we'll know if it's working.
You can't hear me yet?
Can you see? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you?
Oh, so it was the speaker. Okay, sorry.
Okay. I was about to say, we definitely can't stop yet. We're just about to get to the good part. So, you can hear me now, right?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
It
No, we
seems
lost
to
the
be
last 5 minutes.
it seems to be establishing a two-tier approach. On a theoretical level, on the fundamental aspect of the value of people's life, we're all equal, and no one is considered to be their life is not considered to be more valuable or less valuable. Moshe and Aaron are equal. Turtle doves and female pigeons are equal. And father and mother are equal. And the fundamental value of life, so to say, in the eyes of God, as far as something that's being created by God, everyone's equal. Everything's equal. No one's life in essence is more valuable than anyone else's. Everyone's equal. But on the practical level of how society functions, over there in creating the order of society, I don't know, maybe the order of society in general, or maybe it's enough just to say the order of Jewish society. I don't know. I don't know if these need to necessarily be universal concepts or not. It could be argued. There definitely are different levels. Moshe is the ultimate leader, and Aaron is not. No, Aaron is number 2. And it's very clear. And that's why 99% of the time, Moshe does appear first. One time appears to tell us there is a level in which Moshe is not more than Aaron. On what level is that? The Midrash doesn't say, but I think it's the fact they're both created, they both have roles in this world, they both, etc., are created by God, etc. But this is what I'm saying. And again, it's important for me to say a disclaimer. This is not what the Midrash is saying. But I don't see how you don't get to this conclusion from the Midrash. The mere fact that we understand on a theological level, or even like on a creationist level, that all humans are created equal, or all humans are created in the image of God, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't mean that in the way society functions, that translates into everyone can do what they want, or everyone needs to be accepted no matter what. Because look, father and mother, the Midrash says they're equal. But in the practicality of life, the father gets precedence over the mother. The Midrash doesn't, wait. The Midrash doesn't explain to us why. The Midrash doesn't explain to us if it's about the ability of the family to function, or that's one possibility. I think it's more than that. I can't prove this. I think the focus of the Midrash on the obligation, right? Because both you and your mother are obligated to honor him. It comes and says, this world that we actually live in is a world, and again, this is more me talking than the Midrash now. But I think this is what I get from the Midrash. And I think it's a very, very fundamental idea that has to do with all these discussions about homosexuality in Orthodoxy and transgenderism and all of these topics. That the discussion, it should not be centered on the, I'd say, biological legitimacy. The Torah and the Midrash and Halacha have no problem recognizing that there is a larger variety of sexes out there. I won't use the word gender because I don't think that Halacha recognizes the term gender. But there is a variety of sexes out there, and it's not just 100% binary. So the Halacha, the Torah, and definitely the Midrash and Halacha accept those as biological realities. But it comes and says, just because I accept it as a biological reality doesn't mean that I necessarily have to accept it completely as far as how it affects the society. And this is the bottom line. Yes, mother and father are equal on a theological or on the level of the value of life. But practically in society, for whatever reason, the father gets precedence over the mother. I think it has to do with obligation. That at the end of the day, we understand, and I'm coming to my real bottom line, we understand that we live lives of obligation. We do not believe, I do not think that halacha has the understanding of the concept of rights. Of that just because you are alive, you have the right to X. No. We live in a world of obligations. That's a committed Jew lives in a world of obligations. You do not have rights. You have obligations. I have an obligation towards my mother, and I have an obligation towards my father. I do not have the right to serve them. I have an obligation to serve them. I do not have the right to rest. I have an obligation to feed and clothe my mother and father because I do not have the right to my private time when my father and mother need a drink of water. I have an obligation to give to them equally. But my mother also has an obligation towards my father. My father also has obligation towards my mother, but right now it's not discussing those. And it comes and says, just because you are who you are, and your life is very valuable, does not automatically mean you deserve anything. So the discussion, I think, this Midrash is pointing us into a direction or into a discussion or an orientation that says, I don't need to deny the existence of homosexuality or transgenderism or gender fluidity in order to come and say that they shouldn't be able to affect and change the structure of society. Because just because you are who you are doesn't mean you have the right to marry, adopt, or a million other things. Just because you exist, I don't need to deny you exist. There are other ideals and morals that, at least from a Torah perspective, that create for us the structure of what society needs to look like. And it doesn't come from the inherent rights that human beings have. All human beings are equal as creations. But when it comes to creating society, we follow a different law, not the law of nature. It is not the law of nature that dictates to us how to construct our society. There are other ideals, morals, observances that dictate for us what society needs to look like. They are not a 100% consequence of biological imperatives. There, in many, many ways, halacha has us not follow our biological instincts in order to build what Torah understands to be a more moral and a more ideal and a holy society. So we do not need to deny a person's right to exist in order to come and say this is not acceptable in our society. It doesn't mean we go and we run them out of town. But the way in which we structure Torah understands we construct society, and I don't, whether this is a universal concept or just for Jewish society, I don't know.
But
so last sentence. So on the one hand, Midrash is being very progressive. Sounds like it's being very progressive in accepting a certain reality about human beings. On the other hand, it's being very unprogressive by saying, I don't care that you were born this way. I don't need to deny that you were born this way. Fine, you were born this way. But our society and the ideals by which our society runs don't need to change just because you were born in an unbinary way. It doesn't mean I need to run you out of town. Yes, Oleg.
No, I generally agree with you, but then the question becomes, is it still relevant? Because if we go back and whether this social construct that Torah is presenting is still relevant, there is an obligation for a man that goes on a sea voyage to take a second wife if his voyage is of X days or more, so that he has wives on both sides of the sea.
Right.
So it's not the right. He must take a second wife because he's away from home for I don't remember for how many days. So, but at the same time, we live in a society where we no longer have multiple wives, and it's not socially acceptable anymore. And in general, the world benefited from this from a family that has only two people. So is it still relevant? And should we be going to the social construct presented in the Torah as a blueprint and how the society should be organized? Or should we say, okay, this was relevant at that time, but now we know that the world can work better in a different.
I have another question, and you can maybe answer both.
Yes.
Now we see it is accepted in different societies, as you said, and in ours first, that the mother should be honored, but the mother and the child should honor the father first.
Right.
Yeah, because the father has an ego. So now, the father has an ego, and you have to respect that ego. And the father.
I agree that the father. I agree that the father has an ego.
I'm not finished.
But no,
the father has a strength that you don't have, and he has an ego. So now we are looking around, and the masculine society, which is the one that leads the world, is destroying the earth, destroying the waters, destroying the air, destroying everything they can. So women say now, look what men are doing. So the time is coming that society should become a matriarchat, because women are able to preserve, to conserve, to respect, not to destroy, not to be violent, and so on and so forth. So you tell me now.
So I will try to answer both questions at once. And of course, this is a very, very, very large topic, everything that we're talking about here. And we're just really, I know it opens up a lot. So I'll just say one more, I think, fundamental concept that comes out from one of our midrashim, and then maybe we'll end because we've gone over time. Although I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. My day is just about to start. If we go back to the second Midrash, the one that talks about the initial creation of Adam Harishon, of the first human being. And both approaches, both opinions, even though they disagree, and it's an interesting discussion to have, what is the difference between those two opinions, the androgynous opinion and the opinion that says they were distinct but just connected, like Siamese twins? Either way, I think the answer to both questions, it's more to Batya's question, but I think it relates a little bit to Oleg's as well. That the Torah initially presents to us male and female as one complete unit, whichever opinion you go with. And it seems to understand that man on his own and woman on their own is only a partial human being. It seems to be trying to say, when God created, if you look in the first story of creation in chapter 1, that man never existed in this world according to the story as it's presented as a creation story. I'm not talking about the anthropology here, or biology. I'm talking about the way in which the Torah presents the creation of human beings, male and female. Male and female. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Male and female are never exist on their own. They are created as a single unit that afterwards gets separated. Again, and we should not get hung up on whether this is a scientific description or not. You know, we've spoken about this many times. The Midrash doesn't care about science, and Torah doesn't care about science. For that, we have brains. It's trying to create for us, when we first initially meet, on the most fundamental level, human beings is a male-female organism. You will, later on, when it comes to the practical world, that human creation will manifest itself in two faces, in two separate biological entities, male and female. But don't get confused. A male on their own is not a complete human. And a female on their own is not a complete human. In the very first moment of creation, Hashem is speaking to a male-female entity. So I'm going here just a second to what Batya was talking about. We have been brainwashed. Today was the anniversary of Simone de Beauvoir's death. Okay, we have been brainwashed for a very, very long time to view society as all about power. Men have the power, women do not have the power. And we have been brainwashed, and we're brainwashed with it day and night, that society, not just about men and women, about, this is not just about male and female. We have been taught to think of society, that all society is a relationship of power. It goes back to Marx. That all society is who is the powerful and who is the powerless. And it goes to all of our political discussions as well. And that if you are a wealthy white a person in America, then you are the powerful. And just by existing, and of course I'm getting extremely political here, just by the mere fact that you exist, you hold power over the poor Hispanic or black person. And it's all about power. And therefore you are at fault. And therefore you need to do things. And if you are an Israeli who is powerful, and you're not versus the Palestinian who is powerless, but automatically we've been taught to look at society as just a play of powers. And the picture that the Midrash is drawing here is very, very different. It says, and I think it's trying to say, stop looking at it as man versus woman, woman versus man. That is not how the society that the Torah is trying to create. It's saying it is man and woman together. Will there be one side of this organism who might be more dominant, and we'll call that side of the organism male? Maybe. Will there be a side of that organism which is less dominant and less present on the front lines of society, on the external activities of society? Yes, we'll call that female. But don't forget, every male, that you come from a female. And don't forget that there's a mishmash. And don't forget that because you really on your own, Mr. Man, you're not a real person. Only when you are with a woman, a female, you are a full person. And vice versa. And society is built out of this total organism. It's one that tries, this approach is one that is trying to completely diffuse seeing society as we've been taught to see it. And Oleg, to your question, I I think that this might answer your question as well. The fact that later on we discover that it is permissible for a man to marry more than one woman does not change the fact that the original creation and the ideal picture that's being drawn is one of a male-female organism. I agree. It is permissible from the Torah for a man to marry more than one woman, but like I said, I don't think that the Torah or Chazal are trying to create a society where everyone feels that they are equal to everyone else. There are other ideals and other morals and other concepts that dictate how society will, in a practical level, be constructed, either because of functionality or because, I think deeper than that, is certain morals and ideals that we believe in, that are not a direct consequence of biological imperatives, but that does not in any way remove the fundamental understanding that everyone was created in the image of God and everyone has, etc., etc. But that doesn't mean, anyhow, okay, I don't want to repeat myself again and again. So there's a lot that was said here. I know perfectly well that a lot that I've said is not a direct consequence of the Midrash. I just want to say that from the Midrash's perspective, we discovered okay, you know what? I said enough. I think we said enough. I think we did do certain things here from the Midrash did do certain things here from a perspective of the methodology that I always try to point out, but I think we've gone long enough. So this one was a little bit more removed from the Midrash itself, but still, I think there's tremendous grounds here from what the Midrash has given us to work with. Everyone have a great week.
Chodesh Tov.
And Chodesh Tov, and be safe. Everyone, please be safe.
Thank you.
George.
Rabbi Spitz.
Wait, Alex?
I would like to talk with you, but I am not very good with the telephone, with the computer. Can you call me when you come back home?
Yes, very much. Can you, Batya, can you give me your phone number?
905.
Yes.
707.
Yes.
5740.
5740.
Batya.
Okay. I will call you, Be'ezrat Hashem, on Thursday or Friday. Okay. Also, Batya, what is your email?
Well, whenever.
It's in the list.
Do we have a class next Sunday?
Yes. We have class next Sunday.
Right,
okay.
It's one of the emails you send in the list.
Okay. Okay, Alex, you'll
Catalina.
Catalina, it's the one that starts with Catalina.
Catalina 1318@gmail.com. Catalina, Catalina.
Okay.
You want to say something about the recording, Rabbi Spitz?
Thank you, Yishar. Thank you so much.
Alex?
Yep.
Okay, so the moment when you can, if you could just check that the recording worked, and then if you could send it to me, how are you going to send it to me?
I'll upload